Obsession. A true story. The unfolding of a very complex process of obsession, with its main roots planted deep in the mysterious soil of past incarnations, with many implications projected into the future of those involved.
Hello, dear friends, and welcome to a new study session of the book Obsession, dictated by the spirit of Manuel Filomeno de Miranda through the medium Divaldo Franco. May the loving presence of our newborn Master Jesus guide us, illuminate us, and inspire us tonight and always. In true Christmas spirit, tonight we will be blessed with the renewal of the spirit companion of our dear Esther. We friends have been accompanying the journey of our friend Esther for quite a while, and today we continue to see how the presence of our beloved Master transforms lives, as the spirit of Matthias begins to be rescued by the loving hands of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes and other spirit doctors, nurses, and therapists that act as messengers of the Christ himself. How consoling it is to know that every day is Christmas for us in both realms of life, because the Christ is always ready to reach out for us. The Christ always loves us without any conditions, and the Christ always renews his faith in us, offering us opportunities to begin anew, almost as if we could begin a new incarnation within our existing life experiences. How beautiful, right, dear listeners? It's beautiful to be able to recreate the Christmas spirit every day within our hearts. So let us welcome the presence of our Master as we study tonight, and let us allow every opportunity for reflection to renew our hearts, spirits, and minds, strengthening our spirit muscles so that we become better, more loving, and more willing servants of God's loving presence on this earth. So be it. Enjoy our study of tonight, dear friends.
Chapter 19. Surprising Revelations. From the Spirit's Book, Part 2, Chapter 6. What is the nature of the relations between good and bad spirits? Answer. The good ones endeavor to combat the evil tendencies of the others, in order to aid them to raise themselves to a higher degree. This intercourse is, for the former, a mission. The entity's surprising utterance surprised the sinners. Who can consider himself happy, really happy? Asked the counselor. Only the blessed ones, who dedicate themselves entirely to serve, can enjoy such reward. Not us yet. Yes, continued the entity, but I'm miserable because I hate and I want to hate, because I can't do anything else. Hatred is a bypass, not the main road, argued the counselor. Hatred is disease, not health. Hatred is a live coal that burns the hands of its keeper. No offense is great enough to be answered with hatred. It's better to forgive. Hatred springs from our instincts. Forgiveness comes from reason. Not with me, the entity insisted. I'm too ignorant. I was cheated. I'm an animal. Cheated is the one who deceives, the counselor went on. The victim, sooner or later, is blessed, but not the criminal. And we don't consider you an animal. Not as you mean it, at least. But like a herd animal, the victim remembers what he has suffered. This is so because you enjoy suffering. And since you've chosen to be a prisoner rather than a free man, it will be difficult to help you. Ask him, he groaned. Ask him if he remembers me. He certainly doesn't remember. We dwell in different spheres of life, the counselor explained. He doesn't see you or attune with you because he's clothed with dense matter. You are a discarnate spirit. You can't be seen by everybody, although some people are both able to feel your presence and to be disturbed by it, as Esther does, for instance. The counselor spoke softly and clearly. The vibrations of his kindness and faith reached the depths of the entity's heart, appeasing him. You haven't told us your name, the counselor proceeded. Although personal identification is not essential, we receive you here as a sick brother needing attention, but we'd like to know what to call you. Very well then, call me Matthias. I died during the war under his orders. Ask him. Maybe he doesn't remember me. Who would remember an ordinary buck private? Yet, I was his orderly, his slave. They called me Baiano. He was the captain then, and he acted as if he owned the war. We were in Italy, December 1944. A bitter winter, and we shivered like the hell in Monte Castello, the war raging all around. Some battles caused heavy losses among our troops. Then it was December 12th, and we waited long for the day, but it seemed it would never break, so cold and humid and foggy it was, and it rained all the time. But we had strict orders, thrown back from Monte Castello in a previous battle. We were now to take it at any cost. I had taken part in a previous battle and was appointed again. Then he interrupted his story and began to shout madly. Becerra promptly assisted him with magnetic passes to help him keep going. Pouring out his story would help him to liberate the negative vibrations that were consuming him. We concentrated on the entity's mental field, and we could actually see live scenes being reproduced as he remembered. It was a perfect example of idioplasty. So real were the images in his mind that the medium's body, obeying the entity's mental command, tossed and turned, his face contorted, as the entity re-experienced the agonies of physical death. Colonel Sobreras stood up, approached the medium, and through him reached the entity with passes that helped him to calm down. Take it easy, my friend, said Colonel Sobrera, and trust God. This happened long ago. They're just memories now. And negative memories, my friend, when nurtured, may take vivid shape in our mind and haunt us relentlessly. So please calm down. I suffer, and hatred drives me mad, he yelled. He will remember me now. I might refresh his memory if he wishes me to. Dear brother, insisted the counselor, the war and all its horrors ended 15 years ago, and you're still tied to it? What have you done with the knowledge of immortality you have now? What's the sense in taking revenge on someone you believe to be responsible for your departure from the earth plane? Death is a natural phenomenon. Not with me it wasn't, interrupted the entity spasmodically. He killed me. He pushed me into death, and that wasn't all. The rascal failed me. I hate him. I hate him. All right. You better rest a little, my friend, the counselor said kindly. Hatred is a corrosive acid. Pull yourself together. Try to be calm. You'll get over this soon. Colonel Sobrera's calm voice, musical and rhythmical, produced a soothing induction upon the afflicted entity. We took advantage of the sitter's positive vibrations to enforce our cooperation by means of an interceding prayer, while our instructor helped Esther's obsessor to free himself from the strong bonds of hatred and reveal his personal drama. Melquiades and Angelo, both skilled in psychic nursing, approached the Santa Marias and had helped them to calm down. The colonel began to search his war memories, the bleak December days, the bitter battles. He wouldn't have remembered Matthias if it were not for his nickname. Of course he remembered Bayan. But what on earth have I done to him? Colonel Santamaria asked himself. He had never abused anyone. What could have been his fault? Cold tears ran down his scalding face, cooling it as they passed. He had held back the need to cry for some time, however, in the sudden quietness that filled the room. He let the tears wash out revolt from his heart. Emotion oppressed him, as if he had a heavy weight upon his chest. Life had its mysteries, he thought, and he had been caught in some of its mysteries. He wondered how things would turn out. He promised himself to do anything to appease the distressed entity and rescue his daughter. "Oh, God, have mercy," he wailed, unable to control his emotions. His affectionate wife, equally affected by Melquiades, held her husband's hand in hers and tried to comfort him. "Be calm," she said. "Let's trust God. Let's help with the prayer. Our Father." Then her gesture produced the desired consequence. Meanwhile, the counselor continued with his passes on the medium Joel, through whom he reached Matthias, still tossing and turning, slightly convulsive. The fluid therapy employed helped the entity recover a little, and stimulated by Becerra, he was able to resume his story. "I wasn't crazy about him, sure," he started, "but I served him with respect. Deep down in my heart, I resented him because of his position." He paused for a moment, as if to organize the confused memories in his troubled mind. "Go ahead, brother," encouraged the counselor. "We want to know your story to better evaluate your troubles and help you more effectually. Please proceed." The entity, less desperate now thanks to the help he was getting from both planes of life, continued. "I've always believed in dreams," he continued. "Well, I had dreamt I would die that very day. I hadn't had much sleep. Even so, I got the warning. I said my prayers and went to the captain to ask for any other task but to be sent to the front. I told him why. He laughed and shouted that we were all there to die, and that was just our duty, to give our lives for our country, and that was the time. Well, I couldn't understand that, but, without knowing why, I asked him a favor. If I were to die, as I believed I would, I begged him to help my mother and my sister back home. He looked at me seriously and understood the importance of my request. He promised me he'd do it. He took down my ID number and my family address. It was a solemn moment for me." At this point, he choked again in desperation. Memories, when happy ones, are like light wings taking us up high. If bitter, they become heavy chains that bind us down. Matthias was a prisoner of his hate and his frustrations, experiencing endless torments. And because he revolted, he could not draw any comfort from prayer, hope, optimism, nor look forward to a better future. The alert counselor told the entity, "Tell your story dispassionately, my friend. Remember, without hatred. Try to speak candidly, so that we may be able to review clearly what happened. You're not alone here." "That's right. The kind angel is here and says that I should talk." He was silent for a minute, then continued, "Well, I went to fight and was shot. I have no words to explain what happened. Indeed, I never knew exactly. All I can remember was that buzzing inside my head, the pain, the blood gushing out, the agony, the bright glare, and then death. The glare and the buzzing. I'd lose consciousness for a while and waken again, see the same things in a dreadful, vicious circle. I'd shout out, but my shouts would be lost in many other shouts louder than my own. I tried desperately to pick up the scattered pieces of my blown-up body. I don't know. I really don't know. I think it lasted an eternity. Then one day, when I couldn't say, I heard someone crying and calling my name. I was in all pain and rags. The voice kept calling me so desperately that the sound shook me out of my slumber and dragged me somewhere. Suddenly I saw my mother kneeling down and crying for me. Nobody can imagine what I felt. I staggered towards her and told her, "I'm alive, Mother. I'm sick, but I'm not dead." But it seemed she couldn't hear me. I shook her and shouted louder, desperately, but nothing happened. I ran up to the people in the streets and asked them to tell her I was alive. It was all in vain. Apparently, they couldn't hear me either. It was terrible. She kept saying, all in tears, "Oh, Lord, if my Matthias were alive, we wouldn't be in such a miserable situation. Neither me nor Josephine." Josephine was my sister. What had happened to her, I wondered. Mother had become a shadow of herself, but I had no difficulty identifying her. And Josephine? I started to vociferate, hoping Mother would hear me somehow. And mind you, all that racket going out there in the street, what happened next was beyond my understanding. Not realizing what the matter was with me, since I knew I was alive, I was again dragged by an irresistible force until I found myself in a rooming house near the docks. There I saw ragged, dirty, aggressive women quarreling and cursing in utter disgrace. It was a brothel. I ran up the stairs in a desperate search. I stopped in a room that looked more like a pigsty, and there by the window looking out at the sea was my sister. She was a big girl now, but she had changed so much. Only her sad, big, dark eyes and the hair were the same. "It can't be," I kept repeating to myself. "It can't be, not my sister." So now new abominations were placed on top of my misery. My sister was crying, and I figured she must be thinking of me. And I felt she was thinking of me with love and grief. She didn't look well and was coughing from time to time. I looked at her so pale, so thin, she let the tears run down her face. I approached and touched her, crying myself and feeling helpless. At my touch, she shuddered. I called her and called her. Her eyes opened wide as if she could hear me calling her name. I think she saw me because she suddenly screamed, darted out of the room, and ran down the steps. A tumult broke loose in the building, and I had to confront the truth. My sister was in a brothel. It was too much for me. I passed out. Matthias was now crying copiously. We were all moved by his tears. Suffering instills sympathy. Colonel Cabrera and the sitters listened with sympathy, involving the entity in the warmth of sincere compassion. This gave him some comfort. Supported by this atmosphere of real concern, the Baiano continued his narrative. This seemed to have no end. After some time had gone by, I woke up, not knowing exactly where I was, but faint recollections made me think. I couldn't describe what I felt both in my body and in my soul. In the confusion around me, I became aware of a crowd of ruffians of the lowest possible stand mocking me sneeringly, roaring with laughter. I learned then the hard way that I had died. All the horror I'd gone through and was still going through was death. Terror seized me. It wasn't easy to get used to the idea. You see, I felt I was about to die, and they told me I was dead already. It puzzled me, you understand? "I do, my friend," answered Colonel Cabrera patiently. "When one lives exclusively for the material body, it's very hard to part with it. Our habits become the very essence of our lives. But go ahead, let the poison which is eating your heart pour out to the very last drop, so that you can walk to the light of understanding and see a new daybreak where joy and rest wait for you." In my mind, the entity continued, I tried to find the meaning of things. Though I suffered hell in the hands of those miserable entities whom I found to be in a worse position than myself because they didn't even fear God, I slowly began to adjust to the idea of death. And I understood why Mother couldn't see me, but something still puzzled me. What about the thirst and hunger I still felt? Wasn't death the end of everything? Time went by. How much time? I couldn't say. While in the company of those disgusting entities, I learned what death was. They told me we were in purgatory, on our way to hell. Those who had accounts to settle must do it before the hooded ones came to separate those who would stay from those who should be sent to Satan. Very slowly, I began to put my memories in order. It was then that I remembered the captain. Was he dead? Since my family was in such hardship, he must have died before he could do anything for them as he had promised. I centered my thoughts upon him, wondering where he must be, how I could find out. Tormented by the doubt whether he was dead or alive, I let hatred deepen within me. If he were alive, then he had failed me. There was a pause. The narrative reached its climax. Matthias went on, his voice altered, breathing with difficulty. Our mentor helped him solicitly. In a moment where intense hatred dominated me, I completely lost control of myself. Yelling and cursing like mad, willing powerfully to find him, I felt once again the same strange force dragging me somewhere until I found myself in a splendid room where, looking older but strong and happy and smiling proudly, he exhibited his daughter. I threw myself on him and socked him several times, but he didn't seem to notice. I saw others dead like me, and some worse than me amidst the regular guests. Then I saw his daughter begin to play the piano. She was about the same age as Josephine, and yet so different. I approached her and noticed she felt my presence. I touched her and she shivered. I grabbed her arms and they became my arms. I got a little dizzy and she swayed. I thought and she responded. I lifted her up and we walked together. Then through her I slapped his face, crazy with hatred, overjoyed to find her insane with me, the two of us acting as one. And we still are one, and we're going to remain so. Now ask him if he knows me. The entity stopped, panting hard. The medium's body, greatly agitated, reflected the spirit's commotion. The entity looked victorious. Bizarra entrusted the psychic control of Matthias to Angelo and went over to Colonel Santamaria and Colonel Cabrera to better direct them. Colonel Cabrera, who had been greatly moved by the whole story, began to talk serenely. Yours, he said, is not a unique drama. The central character in the tragedy of the cavalry was innocent, and yet was able to forgive. Now you're a guilty sinner, yet you rejoice over the suffering you impose on others. Does your neighbor's disaster alleviate your agony? Will poor Esther's madness help to lift up the fallen Josephine? Will Donna Margarita's sorrow minimize your mother's needs? Listen, you're not avenging your people. You're actually destroying them. You don't love them. You never did. Such reasoning confused the entity, and he replied indignantly, I do love them. I've always loved them. Those who love, said Colonel Cabrera, try to help. They don't withhold assistance to pursue crime. Is it love to abandon one's sister in a brothel and go and force another girl into a mental home? What difference is there between the man who perverted Josephine and you who brought disgrace to Esther? I bring justice. Don't mix up justice and indignity, the counselor exclaimed. It's cowardice to lurk in the shadows of invisibility and attack anonymously. If you really loved your family, you would do your best to assist them and let God take care of the others. He is the Father of us all. The entity began to cry, different tears now. Colonel Cabrera, inspired by Bizarra, turned to Colonel Santamaria and asked, Constancio, would you like to talk to him? Is there anything you'd like to say? This is Jesus' house where everyone is free to express himself. Yes, answered the colonel hesitatingly. I'd like to say that I'm suffering a lot myself. I admit I'm guilty, but not of a crime deliberately committed. Now I can remember Matthias, who served with me. I never meant to fail him or disregard his request. Yet I promised to do something for his people if he shouldn't return. Those days seem so far away, yet now suddenly they're here. I can see again in my mind's eyes that awful day, the victory and the losses. The new battles, the troops moving, the anxiety and the fears. Then peace came months later. We returned home, tried to adapt to new activities and meet old duties. I was betrayed by memory. Oh my God, I forgot. I never remembered, only now. Forgive me, you who has suffered so much. Forgive me. I didn't mean it. Give me a chance to atone for my errors before my time comes. The unexpected attitude of Esther's father touched every heart. His emotion showed deep sincerity. I'll never forgive you, retorted Matthias. It's right to punish me, not Esther. Hurl your club towards me and hit me. Esther, your daughter, is the only way. Then give me the chance to help Josephine and your mother. I have enough means. Help them? What, the wolf help the sheep? Tell me where they are, and I'll visit them. I'll tell your mother everything. I'll make her my sister, and your sister my daughter. I don't mean to bargain Esther's health with the reparation of my evil deed, but I've always tried to be consistent with myself and worthy of my actions. Whenever I find myself in error, I'm never afraid to make amends. Help me. I don't believe what you say. You failed me once. Why wouldn't you fail me again? I'm not asking freedom for my daughter. Go ahead, while God allows you. I know that even the leaves do not fall from a tree without his knowing. As my hour has come now, yours will come someday. Give it a try, Matthias. You know how the pain aches. Help me. The entity thought for a while, then asked, How will you do it? You tell me where they live, the city, the street if possible, and leave the rest to me. The entity then gave Colonel Santamaria an address in Salvador. God bless you, said Colonel Santamaria in a choked voice, and forgive me if you can. Colonel Cabrera turned to the entity and asked, Well? I can't promise anything. It's his problem. Besides, I'm very tired, too tired. This makes me suffer intensely. Then try to rest and think about sleep. Sleep. At a sign from Becerra, I began to help Colonel Cabrera to induce Matthias into a hypnotic sleep state. I helped him to leave the medium. Becerra came through Rosangela to give the final instructions. Our brother Matthias, he began, has been able to pour out some of the poison he carries inside. As a tumor has to be incised and left open to drain out so that the cells can be regenerated. Sometimes our moral wounds need to be drained out, also to cleanse the spirit of negative mental energies accumulated. Thanks to the Lord, we are getting positive results. Our brother, conveniently enlightened, will rest in peace, and Esther will recover her physical health and mental balance. It is advisable that you keep your serenity after our work here is done, and return home in peace. Set your minds on higher ideals, so that during sleep we may continue our work. Let's not cherish resentment in our hearts. Let's postpone questions and avoid anxieties. Jesus, my friends, is our source of peace. He will help us perform our duties when the time comes. Let's give ourselves up to him and wait patiently for the results. He said a word of farewell and left the medium. Excited and hopeful, Colonel Cabrera said a prayer which carried a touch of joy and gratitude. As he prayed, we saw an effulgent light coming from the higher spheres penetrating the room. Delicate, radiant flakes of light dropped down gently, dissolving as they touched our bodies. The harmony and peace that pervaded the room reminded us of the Christian groups when visited by the ambassadors of the Lord in the early difficult days of the Christian era.
So much love in this chapter, right, dear friends? Isn't it beautiful to know that even when we are freed from our physical bodies, we are able to receive psychological counseling from loving messengers of the Christ? Isn't it beautiful to know that the Christ himself provides us with tools that helps us to relieve ourselves from emotional trauma that we may have been carrying for decades, as is the case of our dear Matthias. This is why, dear friends, our beloved Master has advised for us to reconcile and forgive as much as possible. Forgiving does not mean to accept what others have done or not done to us as right or wrong, but rather it means to relieve ourselves from the emotional heaviness and burdens that we at times carry over from many lifetimes. Did you know, dear friends, that resentment can be a matter of habitual conditioning? Yes, that's right. The spirit of Matthias is a beautiful reflection of all of us, because at times we struggle with grudges as well, right, dear friends? It's part of our learning experience. God allows us in His infinite loving kindness to feel grudges at times so that we are able to exercise our spiritual muscles in the gym of the soul and in the school of life. So it is a blessing to be challenged. It is a blessing to be given the opportunity to transform difficult, heavier feelings into lighter ones, into sources of light and compassion. How may we do so? By reflecting upon the fact that the friends who behave in ways that are challenging towards us do so because at times they know less than us about the laws that govern the universe. They may not yet know that the Spirit, all of us, discarnates or incarnates, are eternal, that we undergo many life experiences, that we are meant to love one another without conditions. They may not have yet learned to exercise these aspects of their own spiritual development. But we, as part of the same eternal family, those of us who are connected through Kardec Radio or through other means and are seeking to nourish our souls, those of us who have been brave enough to take the steps to recognize ourselves as immortal spirits, are called to cultivate more patience, more acceptance, more understanding, and more compassion. We notice in the case of the study of tonight that the Spirit Matthias has a change of heart once he realizes that the incarnate Spirit, Coronel Santa Maria, is willing to reach out to his loved ones. Isn't it beautiful that love was the answer all the way along? That this misunderstanding that resulted in a spiritual attachment or spiritual obsession of our friend Esther was but an emotional trauma that Matthias carried within his heart. Isn't it interesting, dear friends, how far emotional trauma can go? This is why it is important for us to love ourselves and to learn to let go of old habits and resentments. And if it is difficult for us to forgive, dear friends, we may just say to ourselves that we are willing to forgive because we deserve to experience the love of our Creator within our hearts. How blessed are we, right? With the gift of God's love. Let us tonight do as the Spirit Matthias has done. Let us open our hearts to God's love and let go of our own guards so that we may more fully experience our life as it is meant to be, because we are all children of God. The Spirit Matthias tonight has began to feel as a beautiful child of God. This is a choice that we can all make. So let us practice nourishing our souls and practice understanding one another. Once we feel hurt, let us practice telling ourselves that the people who hurt us simply do not know what they are doing, as we many times don't have understanding of what we are doing and the impact that our actions has on others. So let us practice compassion as the Spirit Matthias has started to learn to do so. He is a good reflection of all of us, and his pathway of spiritual transformation is a pathway that we can all follow. And this is a beautiful message of hope, dear friends, because we, through this beautiful true narrative, learned that there is always hope. Even when we are free from the physical body, God constantly blesses us with opportunities of deep spiritual renewal. So let us embrace the opportunities of renewal that God constantly grants us every single day of our lives. And let us pray so that we have ears to hear, eyes to see, and hearts to feel the good that is provided to us constantly. Let us seek the good, visualize the good, and mold the good with all the resources that are made available to us, as says the Spirit Emmanuel. And may the love of our beloved Master remain with all of us, now and always. Have a blessed and beautiful week.